Captain Andrew Simmons slammed his fist on the console, his jaw clenched as the Supreme Commander's taunting message echoed through the bridge. After years of tireless work, building the USS Goodwill and training his crew, the seasoned explorer was ready for anything on this historic first contact mission, anything except outright mockery from Earth's long-awaited alien visitors. The Wagner had been observing humanity for centuries, Kide revealed, and found the fractured primitive species hardly worth engaging. Simmons bristled at the casual disregard in the alien's tone. Cade spoke of humans as one might regard a simple amoeba, a curiosity, nothing more. As Earth's delegation reeled, a commotion erupted in the Goodwill's cargo bay. Simmons rushed to investigate and found his crew locked in a standoff with the Wagner boarding party. But the aliens weren't brandishing weapons. They were cooing and fawning over the dogs, cats, and other animals the Goodwill used for companionship and stress relief. In that surreal moment, an idea struck Simmons like a plasma bolt. If the Wagner placed such value on these lesser creatures, perhaps there was still a way to forge a connection and prove humanity's worth. The aliens wanted pets? He'd give them pets. The best damn pets in the galaxy. It was a long shot, Simmons knew, but it might be Earth's only shot. And so, with a steady hand and a silent prayer, the captain turned to Cade to propose a deal that would change the course of intergalactic history. The future was riding on humanity's ability to turn their perceived weaknesses into an unlikely strength. And Simmons would be damned if he let his people down now, on the cusp of their greatest challenge yet. As the USS Goodwill prepared to depart Earth, the bridge was a flurry of activity. Crew members hurried to their stations, running final checks on the ship's systems. Captain Simmons stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the display displaying the vast expanse of space before them. Just as he was about to give the order to engage the FTL drive, a priority message flashed across his console. Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Thompson at Space Command. Lieutenant Commander Olivia Chen reported from the communications station. Simmons frowned. Put it through. The view screen flickered, and Admiral James Thompson's weathered face appeared. Captain Simmons, we have a situation. Simmons listened intently as Thompson relayed the disturbing intelligence about General Zorg and his rogue Wagner faction. The Admiral's words sent a chill down Simmons's spine. If Zorg succeeded in sabotaging the pet trade deal, it could spell disaster for Earth and the innocent animals now in their care. Understood, Admiral, Simmons said, his voice steady despite the weight of the news. We'll take every precaution to protect our cargo and gather the intel we need to stop Zorg. Thompson nodded. Good luck, Captain. The fate of Earth may very well rest in your hands. As the transmission ended, Simmons turned to his crew. Change of plans, people. We're setting a course for the anarchic space frontier. Lieutenant Jensen, plot a route to Starport Omega. Aye, Captain, Jensen replied, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. The USS Goodwill slipped into the inky void, its hull shimmering under the distant starlight. In the cargo bay, the animals stirred restlessly in their cages, as if sensing the uncertainty that lay ahead. Starport Omega was a hive of activity, a chaotic jumble of ships and beings from across the galaxy. The air hung thick with the acrid scent of fuel and the clamor of a dozen alien languages. As Simmons and his away team navigated the crowded streets, they couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked around every corner. Their contact, Jack Ace Harper, lounged at a corner table in a seedy bar, his feline companion, Nixia, perched on his shoulder. The smuggler's eyes glinted with mischief as he watched the crew approach. Well, well, if it isn't the famous Captain Simmons, Harper drawled, his lips curling into a smirk. Never thought I'd see the day when Earth's finest would come seeking help from the likes of me. Simmons bristled at Harper's tone but maintained his composure. We have reason to believe you have information that could be vital to our mission, Mr. Harper. Harper leaned back in his chair, absently scratching Nixia behind the ears. Information is a valuable commodity out here, Captain. What's in it for me? A chance to strike a blow against General Zorg and his cronies, Simmons replied, holding Harper's gaze, and a cut of any intel we uncover. Harper considered for a moment, then grinned. You've got yourself a deal, Captain. But I warn you, tangling with Zorg is no cakewalk. You'd best be prepared for anything. No. The USS Goodwill shuddered as another volley of laser fire slammed into its shields. On the bridge, sparks flew from overloaded consoles as the crew fought to keep the ship together. "Shields at 30%, Captain," Chief Engineer Marcus Donnelly shouted over the din of battle. Simmons clutched the armrests of his chair, his fist clenched. "Lieutenant Jensen, evasive maneuvers. We need to shake these fighters." Jensen's hands flew over the controls, sending the ship into a dizzying spiral. The Wagner fighters, sleek and deadly, matched every move, their weapons relentlessly pounding the Goodwill's failing defenses. "Captain, we can't take much more of this," Donnelly warned, his face grim. Simmons knew they had only one option. "Prepare for emergency landing on Zephyr 6. We'll have to take our chances on the surface." As the USS Goodwill plummeted through the moon's atmosphere, trailing smoke and flames, Simmons could only pray that they would survive long enough to complete their mission and uncover the terrible truth that awaited them on Zephyr 6. The USS Goodwill limped back to Earth, its hull scarred and systems barely functional after the harrowing escape from Zephyr 6. As soon as they entered orbit, Captain Simmons requested an urgent meeting with Admiral Thompson and the Earth Space Command leadership. Hours later, Simmons stood before a somber gathering of Earth's top military brass in a secure underground bunker. The room fell silent as he inserted the stolen data drive into a holographic projector. "What you're about to see changes everything," Simmons said, his voice grave. The air shimmered as images materialized. Schematics of genetically enhanced animals, surveillance footage of covert operations, and detailed plans for infiltrating Earth's power structures. Admiral Thompson's face paled as the full scope of General Zorg's Trojan Hound scheme became clear. "This is worse than we could have imagined," Thompson muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. "Simmons, we need a plan to counter this threat." Simmons nodded, his mind already racing. "I may have an idea, sir, but we'll need to think outside the box." Within days, the USS Goodwill was transformed. Its cargo bays were retrofitted with state-of-the-art training facilities, and its mission parameters completely overhauled. As Simmons strode through the new Animal Academy, he couldn't help but marvel at the sight of Dr. Eliza Hoffman working with their first recruit, Max, a German shepherd with piercing blue eyes and an uncanny ability to sense deception. "How's he progressing, Doctor?" Simmons asked, watching as Max navigated a complex obstacle course. Dr. Hoffman smiled, her eyes bright with excitement. "Remarkably well, Captain. His cognitive abilities are off the charts. Watch this." She turned to Max, who sat at attention. "Max, identify the Wagner infiltrator." Max's ears perked up. He scanned the room, then padded over to a seemingly ordinary potted plant. With a gentle nudge of his nose, he activated a hidden switch, revealing a holographic Wagner spy. Simmons whistled, impressed. "Good boy, Max." As the days passed, the Goodwill's unique crew grew. Whiskers, a streetwise tomcat, demonstrated his infiltration skills by slipping undetected through a laser grid. Polly, a vibrant parrot, cracked complex alien codes with a series of squawks and whistles. Rufus, a stocky bull terrier, stood guard over sensitive equipment with unwavering vigilance. And Luna, a chameleon-like alien pet, blended seamlessly into various environments, her color-changing skin a marvel of adaptive camouflage. But even as the animal team's training progressed, reports of strange incidents began flooding in from around the globe. In Washington, D.C., a senator's newly adopted labradoodle mysteriously accessed classified files. In Tokyo, a cat belonging to a prominent tech CEO wreaked havoc on the city's power grid. And in Moscow, a diplomat's parakeet seemed to be transmitting coded messages to an unknown recipient. Simmons pored over the reports, his brow furrowed. "They're moving faster than we anticipated. We need to accelerate our timetable." He turned to his second-in-command, Commander Chen. "Prep the team for a covert operation. We've pinpointed a likely drop point for the next shipment of Zorg's super pets. We're going to intercept it." The mission began smoothly. Under the cover of darkness, Simmons led a small team to a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of Beijing. Max took point, his nose twitching as he picked up the scent of the genetically enhanced animals inside. But as they breached the perimeter, alarms blared. Wagner security forces materialized from the shadows, their weapons trained on the human intruders. "Take cover!" Simmons shouted, diving behind a stack of crates as laser fire erupted around them. In the chaos that followed, Max sprang into action. The German Shepherd weaved through the battlefield, disarming Wagner agents with precision strikes. Whiskers darted between the combatants' feet, causing confusion and misdirecting enemy fire. Lieutenant Emily Rodriguez, Max's human partner, vaulted over a barricade to flank the Wagner forces, but as she lined up a shot, a Wagner soldier took aim at her exposed position. Max's ears pricked up. In a heartbeat, he launched himself through the air, taking the brunt of the laser blast meant for Emily. The loyal dog crumpled to the ground, his fur singed and smoking. "Max!" Emily cried out, her voice raw with anguish. She scooped up her fallen companion, cradling him close as she retreated to safety. The firefight raged on, but Simmons knew they had to abort. "Fall back," he ordered, covering Emily's retreat as she carried the wounded Max to their extraction point. Back aboard the Goodwill, Dr. Hoffman worked tirelessly to save Max's life. As she analyzed his enhanced biology, searching for a way to repair the damage, her eyes widened in surprise. "Captain," she called out, her voice tinged with excitement and urgency, "you need to see this." Simmons hurried to her side, studying the complex genetic readouts on her screen. "It's a vulnerability," Hoffman explained, pointing to a specific sequence. "A flaw in the super pet's genetic code. If we can synthesize a counteragent, we could neutralize their threat," Simmons finished, hope rising in his chest. But that hope was short-lived as Hoffman continued. "The compounds we need, they're only found in Wagner space." Simmons' eyebrows furrowed as the weight of their situation sank in. They had the key to saving Earth, but using it meant embarking on a near-suicidal mission into the heart of enemy territory. As Max lay recovering in the medical bay, his loyal eyes fixed on his human companions, Simmons knew what had to be done. The captain squared his shoulders and turned to his crew, tenacity etched on his face. "Prepare for departure," he ordered. "We're going into Wagner space." Space. The USS Goodwill's engines hummed to life as Simmons turned to his crew. "We're entering uncharted territory," he said, his voice steady. "Our mission is clear. Retrieve the compounds we need to neutralize Zorg's threat. Failure is not an option." The ship slipped into FTL, stars blurring into streaks of light. In the medbay, Dr. Hoffman hunched over her workstation, analyzing Max's genetic data. The wounded dog lay nearby, his chest rising and falling steadily. "How's our patient?" Simmons asked, stepping into the sterile room. Hoffman's eyes remained fixed on her screens. "Stable, but his enhanced biology is fascinating. I've isolated the compounds we need, but acquiring them won't be easy." She pulled up a holographic display, highlighting 2 locations. "Our best bets are here, an abandoned Wagner research station and Zorg's command hub on Zorvax 4. Simmons nodded grimly. "Then we split up. Jensen, you'll lead a team to Zorvax 4. Take Max, Whiskers, and Luna. I'll take the Goodwill to the station with Harper and Dr. Hoffman." Hours later, Jensen's infiltration pod detached from the Goodwill, streaking towards the imposing silhouette of Zorvax 4. Inside, Max's ears perked up as Jensen briefed the team. "Remember, we're after one thing, the compound. In and out, minimal engagement." The pod touched down in a secluded ravine. Luna's skin rippled, taking on the mottled gray of the surrounding rocks. She slithered ahead, scouting their path to the facility. Meanwhile, the Goodwill navigated the treacherous nebula surrounding the derelict Wagner station. Simmons gripped the helm as ion storms battered the ship's shields. "Steady as she goes," Harper drawled from the co-pilot seat. "I've run this gauntlet before. Just don't scratch my paint job." Alarms blared as ghostly defense drones materialized from the swirling gases. Simmons barrel-rolled the ship, evading their fire, as Harper targeted the spectral machines with pinpoint accuracy. Back on Zorvax 4, Jensen's team crept through the shadows of Zorg's sprawling complex. Whiskers darted ahead, his keen senses alert for any sign of danger. They reached a sealed laboratory door, and Max went to work, his enhanced olfactory abilities sniffing out the correct access code. The door hissed open, revealing rows of bubbling vats and glowing containment units. Jensen moved swiftly, scanning labels until he found what they needed. "Got it," he whispered, pocketing a small vial. A bone-chilling roar echoed through the facility. Something massive shifted in the darkness at the far end of the lab. Razor-sharp claws clicked against metal as a monstrous reptilian form emerged, its flesh pulsing with corrosive bioweapons. "Fall back!" Jensen ordered, drawing his weapon. The creature lunged, its jaws snapping inches from Jensen's face. Max leapt into action, latching onto the beast's hind leg and buying precious seconds. Luna shimmered into visibility, her chameleon-like body perfectly mimicking the lab's sterile walls. She darted between the monster's legs, causing it to stumble in confusion. Whiskers yowled, drawing the creature's attention as Jensen and his team retreated. They sprinted through winding corridors, the sound of pursuit growing closer with each passing moment. "Extraction points just ahead," Jensen panted. "Luna, buy us some time." The alien pet nodded, her body rippling as she took on the appearance of the hallway behind them. The monster skidded to a halt, momentarily baffled by the seeming dead end. Jensen's team piled into their waiting shuttle, blasting off from Zorvax 4 as alarms blared across the complex. In the nebula, Simmons and Harper docked with the derelict station. Dr. Hoffman donned a hazmat suit, her breath echoing in the confines of her helmet as she stepped into the abandoned labs. "This place gives me the creeps," Harper muttered, keeping watch as Hoffman worked. Simmons ignored him, scanning for any sign of Wagner scavengers. A distant clang echoed through the station's decaying corridors. "Doctor, how much longer?" Hoffman carefully sealed a container of viscous fluid. "Got it. Let's—" The station shuddered violently, klaxons shrieking to life. "The power core's going critical," Simmons shouted. "Move!" They sprinted back to the airlock, explosive decompression nipping at their heels. Harper threw himself into the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls. The Goodwill broke free just as the station erupted in a silent blossom of flame. Both teams converged on the rendezvous point, but their relief was short-lived. A swarm of Wagner warships dropped out of hyperspace, opening fire on the Goodwill. "Evasive maneuvers," Simmons ordered. "Harper, you said you knew a shortcut?" The smuggler grinned, punching in coordinates. "Hold on to your lunch, folks. This might get bumpy." The Goodwill plunged into a shimmering portal, reality twisting around them. They emerged in an unfamiliar star system, inky tendrils of darkness coiling through the void. "Where are we?" Jensen asked, his voice hushed. Before anyone could answer, an otherworldly wail pierced their minds. Spectral forms materialized around the ship, cosmic wraiths, their very presence radiating a palpable aura of despair. In the cargo hold, the animal team whimpered and shrieked, overwhelmed by the psychic assault. Rodriguez knelt beside Max, her hands steady as she stroked his fur. "It's okay, boy. Focus on my voice. We're going to get through this." As the Goodwill raced through the haunted system, the crew fought to maintain their sanity against the Wraith's onslaught. Harper's hands trembled on the controls, sweat beading on his brow. "I don't know how much more of this I can take," he growled. Simmons gripped the smuggler's shoulder. "You've got this, Ace. Get us home." With a final burst of speed, the Goodwill broke free of the Wraith's grasp. A familiar blue-green orb appeared on their view screens. Earth. But their relief was short-lived. The planet's orbital defenses were in flames, shattered debris fields drifting in low orbit. Zorg's forces had already begun their assault. As they plummeted through the atmosphere, Simmons turned to Dr. Hoffman. "Tell me you have good news, Doctor." Hoffman nodded, holding up a vial of shimmering liquid. "I've synthesized the counteragent. Now we just need to deliver it." Simmons's eyes narrowed as he watched Zorg's dreadnought, the retribution, hanging ominously in the sky. Then let's go pay the general a visit. Prepare for atmospheric entry. The Goodwill plunged through Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot as it streaked towards the looming silhouette of Zorg's dreadnought. Simmons gripped the command chair, his fingers tightening. All hands, brace for impact. The ship shuddered as Harper expertly maneuvered through a hail of plasma fire. They burst through a gap in the Retribution's shields, slamming into its hangar bay in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Simmons was on his feet before the dust settled. Move out! We end this now! The crew spilled into the alien corridors, Max leading the charge with his enhanced senses on high alert. They fought their way through waves of Wagner soldiers, whiskers darting between legs to sow confusion, while Luna's chameleonic abilities allowed her to flank unsuspecting enemies. As they neared the command deck, an unholy shriek filled the air. The doors burst open, revealing a nightmarish scene. General Zorg stood surrounded by grotesque creatures, once ordinary pets, now warped into living weapons by twisted Wagner science. Welcome, Captain, Zorg sneered, his voice grating like metal on bone. I see you've brought your own pets to play. The augmented beast lunged forward, drool dripping from cybernetic jaws. Simmons's team found themselves surrounded, fighting for their lives against creatures that were more machine than animal. In the chaos, Simmons spotted a control panel. Acting on instinct, he dove for it, fingers flying across alien symbols. A surge of energy coursed through him as he activated a remote override, seizing command of the super pet's augmented biology. Simmons' mind reeled as he was thrust into a psychic maelstrom. Fractured images assaulted him. Sterile labs, cruel experiments, the agony of forced evolution. He felt the creatures' pain, their fear, their rage. Come on, he growled through gritted teeth. Remember who you are. With a primal roar, Simmons channeled every ounce of his will into breaking the Wagner control. The super pets froze, their eyes clearing as the malign programming unraveled. Zorg howled in fury. Impossible! You can't turn my perfect weapons against me! The Wagner general slammed his clawed hand down on a nearby console. Alarms blared as an aperture opened in the ceiling, venting precious oxygen into space. I'll see you all suffocate before I let you ruin everything. As the air grew thin, Rodriguez stumbled to Simmons's side, cradling a weakened Max. The loyal German shepherd locked eyes with his human partner, a lifetime of trust passing between them in an instant. With a final surge of strength, Max leaped forward, jaws clamping down on a vital cable connected to Zorg's control panel. Sparks flew as systems overloaded, force fields flickering wildly. In the ensuing chaos, a hidden panel in the floor slid open, revealing a cramped escape pod. The liberated super pets, driven by some primal instinct, began bounding towards the exit. Zorg lashed out in blind fury, his claws raking across Emily's face. Blood streamed from the gash as she stumbled back. The Wagner tyrant failed to notice Rufus, the cybernetically enhanced bull terrier, creeping up behind him. With unnatural strength, Rufus leaped, powerful jaws closing around Zorg's throat. The alien general staggered backwards, choking and flailing. In a final act of desperation, he clawed at the airlock controls. The escape pod containing the fleeing super pets jettisoned into the void. Simmons watched in horror as their last hope for rehabilitating the tormented creatures vanished into the star-studded blackness. No! He cried out, lunging for the controls. A familiar screech cut through the din. Polly, the hyper-intelligent parrot, had remained hidden with a jamming device. In a flurry of feathers, the plucky bird triggered the airlock's emergency override, rerouting what remained of the air supply. For a few precious seconds, the survivors gulped in oxygen. It was enough. Zorg, still grappling with Rufus, was sucked out into the unforgiving vacuum of space, his final screams silenced by the void. Gasping and disoriented, the human crew took stock of their dire situation. Dr. Hoffman lay injured, struck by debris during the battle. Jensen was unconscious, shielded by Luna's still form, and Max, Emily cradled the noble German shepherd, tears streaming down her bloodied face as his augmented body grew still. No words were needed to convey the depth of their bond, even as his eyes slowly dimmed. On the shattered view screen, they watched the Wagner Armada, cut off from their leader and reinforcements, begin to withdraw from Earth's orbit. But victory felt hollow in the face of such devastating loss. Simmons staggered to his feet, surveying the wreckage of the command deck. They had saved Earth, but at what cost? As the battered crew of the Goodwill prepared to limp home, he knew the scars of this battle would run far deeper than flesh.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.